Hello to all of you wonderful people. I am so happy that you're back in my channel, Nourished by Claudia, and I'm here today with two amazing human beings. That's Jacey and Eric, and I can't wait to really for all of you to get to know their stories and what they've been through over the past 12 months. But first of all, hello, Jacey. Hello, Eric. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Really excited about this conversation because I don't get to see two people in my video that very often. Normally it's just one. So I'm really excited about our conversation. I think that it's really important for everyone to have a better understanding of where it all started. So JC, you approached me towards the end of last year because you didn't have a period and you had a few questions in regards to your hormones. And then I remember that we had a call together, and then on the second call before you decided to join the HA community and the period comeback protocol, Eric also joined because you have always been doing everything as a team. So first of all, JC, can you tell us more about why you decided to book a call with me and what was going on back at that time?
So we wanted to get pregnant, and it was in May, I believe, that we had decided we were going to start trying. And then we thought we could have potentially have conceived because I didn't get my period. And then I continued to not get my period, but I wasn't pregnant. And then that continued for months. And then we ended up going to a doctor to get my hormones tested. And they told me that I had hypothalamic amenorrhea. And they referred us to an infertility specialist who put me on Provera to force a bleed and I guess ovulate, allegedly. And then that didn't work. The doctor mentioned that we could do that again, and then IUI, and then IVF. And at that point, I had done a lot of looking into hypothalamic amenorrhea, and I came across, I believe it was YouTube. YouTube, or yeah, it was definitely YouTube. And I made him watch her videos, and I was like, listen to this, Eric, this sounds like me. And like, you had other women there that you were speaking with, and I was like, this sounds just like me.
Now here you are today, by the way.
I know. On Instagram, and then I was like, you know what, like, I don't want to have to continue doing all these things that the doctor says. I don't want to put a band-aid on it. I want to fix what's going on, because if my body isn't naturally trying to get pregnant, like, there's obviously an issue there. Like, it's not ready to be pregnant. And if I force a pregnancy on it, who knows what's going to happen? So we reached out to you.
Yeah, and that's a very common story with women that don't have a period. They skip a couple of periods, or maybe they don't have a period for a few years, and they go and see a fertility specialist, and all of a sudden they start taking medications, and they're told they will need to start doing IVF if they don't succeed with medications over a 3 months time frame, which is really sad because, as you said, ultimately you were putting a band-aid solution over a problem that had not been addressed. So in your situation, Jacey, why do you think that you were suffering from hypothalamic amenorrhea? What was happening at that time?
So I was definitely over exercising, which was interesting because I wasn't exercising as much as I had been in the past, but I was restricting nutritionally. Even when I was eating enough calories, the nutrients weren't there. I remember showing you the foods that I was eating, and there were just a lot of nutrients that weren't there, micronutrients, and I wasn't supporting my body. I wasn't fueling, like, even if a number says that I was eating enough calories, I wasn't fueling at all. And I was also intermittent fasting. And through you, I learned a lot about my cortisol and how I'm basically putting myself in a fight or flight response pretty much right when I wake up, with exercising and caffeine, tons of caffeine. And I wasn't supporting my body at all.
Yeah, exercising basically on an empty stomach, and then not eating the first meal until late in the day, sometimes even the evening. I think was a huge contributor. But
and I didn't think it was an issue because I was able to do everything. And when your body gets to a certain point where it's used to not eating that way, you don't think you actually have to.
Yeah.
Because you're not hungry, but that's not true.
Yeah, so you're functioning on adrenaline, and it's very common that women don't have a huge appetite, which is why they keep restricting, and they keep telling themselves the lie of, I'm not hungry, I don't feel the hunger, but ultimately it's simply because the body is in a shutdown mode where it's just retaining all the calories, all the nutrients that it receives. But now tell me, Eric, how did that impact you? How did Jacey behaviors around food and also not having enough nourishment was impacting you and the relationship back at that time?
You
So,
can be honest.
yeah, no, I plan on being. Well, back to what she said about, so when the doctor said, "Oh, we could do all these things," like that was like the furthest thing from my mind.
Yeah.
I always said, like, we're young. There shouldn't be any reason, to jump to those things, like, as naturally as possible. Let's just slowly but surely, get your body back to functioning normally. And because uh, it had it was such a coincidence that when we started to conceive, that's when this happened. Started trying to, and up until that point, she had been pretty regular through the years, and so I knew that, I had a good feeling that once her body would be working properly, that everything would just happen naturally, the way it should.
Well, I think she meant my restrictive lifestyle. Like, how did that affect you?
Oh, well,
Right?
yeah, it was
both things also, because clearly Eric wanted to conceive a baby naturally, and then all of a sudden he was presented with, okay, you need to go to a doctor, you need to do the ultrasound, you need to do the test. It's not exactly the same thing of having a great night together and then making a baby. So that's also a very important part of the equation.
Yeah, I wanted to be as supportive as possible. So it was definitely a difficult time while she, lost her period and trying to figure out what was going on, and just being there to support her, and find the solutions, and find the right doctors and find the right coaches, and really make that change. Yeah, it definitely it was a tough job, because there would be times, and what if my body never works properly? She was, in self-doubt a lot, and then just lifestyle changes of changing the way you eat that you've been doing for so long was tough on her. So I was just there, baby steps, one day at a time kind of support, and letting her know that she was doing a great job, and trying to support her in that way. But it's really not a big job, when you love and care for someone like that deeply. It's not really a job. It's like you said, we're a team. So really just wanted to do my part, and in that moment in time, my job was to support her and help her in every which way she needed, and that's what I tried to do.
You guys, honestly, you're bringing tears to my eyes right now. Oh my goodness. Anyway, let's go back to discussing your recovery journey, Jacey. What was the toughest moment for you? You decided to join the community, and finally you were presented with things that needed to be done from a nutritional standpoint, from an exercise standpoint, and also from a relationship standpoint, because obviously you had to communicate with Eric and tell him what you actually needed and how he could support you. And as he mentioned, you were going through tough moments of self-doubting yourself. What do you think that was the toughest thing for you to do over those few months where you were trying to get your first period back?
It was very scary at first, like introducing foods that I had avoided for so long. Struggling with orthorexia obviously added a layer to things, but a lot of women struggle with that. But I was able to introduce foods that I knew were still healthy, like whole milk. I hadn't had milk at all, and I went from that to whole because I knew it was good for my hormones. But increasing all that stuff at first wasn't super hard, but like accepting the weight gain was definitely the most difficult for me, and limiting my exercise And I remember I had lessened my exercise, and we as in you and myself, discussing, I think we limited to like 2 days a week or something like that of just running. And then I reached out to you and I said, well, can I do 3? Because I was just so freaked out that I was like gaining weight. Even if, and with body dysmorphia, as a lot of women also have, I was seeing myself as way bigger than I was just right off the bat. It's not possible for you to balloon up like that. But you sent me a voice memo, something along the lines of like, yes, you can do that, but is it supporting what you want? Like, is this helping achieve the goal that you want? But you didn't tell me no. And I remember in that moment, I was like annoyed at first because I was like, she knows what she's doing. But then I was like, she knows what she's doing. Like, she's right. Like, it doesn't support what I'm trying to do. Yeah. And shortly after that, instead of adding another day of running, I was like, you know what? I have to cut out this high intensity exercise and really, do this. Because why delay the inevitable?
Yeah. And I remember you saying just the fact that you gave her that option was enough. Like, she just needed to know it was there, but she ultimately cut down to 2 days at that time, but like
none.
And then none. But knowing that it was there was like, a big, mental thing for her.
Yeah, and I agree, because women that suffer from hypothalamic amenorrhea, they come from a place of restriction, and sometimes they work with people that tell them exactly what to do, and they take some of the freedom away. So it's basically going back into a different type of restrictions. And even though some changes needs to be done, it's also very important to put it on you. What do you want to achieve? Which one is your goal? How can you reach your goal in the fastest time as possible without completely losing your mind? I'm wondering, Eric, in hindsight, would you have done anything differently in terms of supporting Jacey? Do you think that you could have done something in a slightly different manner that could have been more helpful for her?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm sure there was things I could have done better or done differently, or things that I didn't do that I wish I had. But at the moment, like, there's nothing I could like go back to mentally and say, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that.
Yeah.
I feel like she went through the program like the way it's meant to be done, and she did the work really, all on her own. She really, once she had a goal in mind, yeah, it was difficult and it was scary, but she did it. And I'm very amazed still that she did what she did, because it's a lot of changes that it's not easy to make. So it is definitely an amazing thing that she did, but I can't really think of anything I wish I did at the moment. But
And out of curiosity, when she was afraid of gaining weight, what did you tell her back at that time?
I just kept reassuring her that, she, first of all, she's beautiful the way the way she is, and that, beforehand she might have been, a lot like a stick, but it wasn't healthy. I kept reminding her, like, yeah, you might have been, tiny like that, but it wasn't, you weren't a healthy version of you when you were like that. And so, yeah, just reminding her that she's still not as big as she's, in her mind, because of her body dysmorphia. She thinks she's, way bigger than she actually is. So I just try to remind her of all that and constantly support that notion that, she's still a healthy, beautiful woman. And that's all I could do.
And sometimes we get so attached to our physicality and what the body looks like. But then if we cannot go out for dinner, for example, if we cannot have a baby, if we cannot go one day without doing any form of exercise, is that even worth it at the end of the day? Because I remember that, Jacey, when we had our first conversation, you said, I don't feel that I can go out for dinner with Eric. And I think that was 3 weeks into the program that you sent me pictures of you going out for dinner. And yes, maybe you had chosen something which was pretty safe from the menu, but that wasn't the point. It was actually you allowing yourself to go out with your partner and have the best time. So can you tell me a bit more about the changes that you have made, Jacey?
Ironically, actually, that made me think of when we went out for breakfast with your parents, because one of the hardest things for me was also eating when I wake up and throughout the day and not saving my calories. And I think you see how it makes other people happy, just like that your presence is there, which is something I kind of deprived them of in the past, and also him. Even though one night we went out for dinner and I ate a fried plantain, which anything fried was like a no. And the place was disappointing. We're going to be honest here, but
it's closed now.
we went out. We went,
no Yelp reviews are needed then.
Yeah, no.
We went out to eat, and it was just nice, like seeing like how something so simple can make him happy.
And that was like also the baby step thing I was telling you about. Like it didn't have to be a whole fried meal or anything like that, but just that's when I really knew she was making progress, when she had a fried plantain. Like I was like, wow, she's really, giving this, she's doing it, but it was just, baby steps from there. So
because I'm an all or nothing person too, so I'm scared if I have a little of something, it's gonna just explode. And I didn't even eat them all, and I didn't want to.
So actually, can we go back to what you just said? You're an all or nothing person, and you're afraid that if you had just one fried plantain, you would have eaten them all. And you have also said that it didn't happen though.
Yeah.
And that is really important for people to hear as well, because there are lots of women out there with all or nothing mentality, but the reality is that you didn't have to balloon and get into a body that you didn't like. You didn't eat all the fried plantains in your restaurant. So we always go to the worst case scenario, which 99% of the time never happens. And I remember when I went through my own recovery journey, and I went out with my husband back at that time, and I ordered a burger. And I live in Australia. It's the land of burgers, with the US as well, as I'm sure. And I sat down and I was like holding this burger, and I'm like, this is the first time that I had a burger in Australia. How is that even possible? It took me like a decade. So it's all about celebrating the small wins, because we always think, oh, when I'm going to have a baby, when I'm going to get my period back, when I'm going to get my second period back. But what about being free to go out to the restaurant and order the food that you want? That's already a win for me. But anyway, shall we also let people know where you are now in your recovery journey?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
What is this?
Go for it.
We are pregnant.
Thank you. I didn't want to say it, so I think that it was important that it was coming from you guys. So how many weeks are you pregnant now?
We are 18 weeks, 2 days.
18 weeks, 2 days. We have our anatomy scan coming up, our 20-week anatomy scan coming up. And yeah, we are super excited. Very, very excited.
Yeah.
And is this a natural pregnancy, or did you have to go back to the fertility specialist?
It was natural.
We never went back to that fertility specialist.
Like I write in when I would journal, which I highly recommend everyone does. Just like talking to yourself, and then like the little mantras. Like I would say, I'm feeding my hormones. When I didn't want to eat, I wanted to eat. I'm feeding my hormones. So I fed my hormones. I ate the foods that really nourish your body and fuel fertility. And we did everything that we could within our power, and we conceived.
Yes. Yep.
And it was natural.
Yes, it was natural. We didn't need to go back to that doctor, because like I originally from the beginning, when I just had a feeling that once her cycle came back and her hormones were regulated, I just knew that we would be able to conceive naturally. And so we just kind of stuck to that.
It was a little different for me because I, as many women with HA, you have a history of an eating disorder. So I thought that before I met you, I was convinced I had ruined my chances of conceiving. Like I had restricted for so long. I knew that I had starved myself at points in my life, and I thought my body was going to remember that. You know, I wasn't going to be able to get pregnant. So that was a big fear of mine. So I wasn't as confident. I hoped, but I didn't know for sure.
Yes, that was definitely a fear of hers. But you know, we did when she was going through HA and we did go see that doctor, they had mentioned that everything looked, you know, great. Her ovaries looked great. Her follicles looked great. Like I remember everything. And so like I kept to that notion that, you know, when the hormones come back, we won't have much trouble. And sure enough, you know, she got her cycle regulated, and she did everything for fertility, from yoga to the food,
journaling as well, I heard.
Journaling.
Journaling.
I mean, you name it, she did it. And
And if I can do it, you can do it. Not you, you're not.
No, I know.
That will be interesting.
But also, you know, speaking to what you asked earlier, and to support, I also had to make sure I was healthy going into this process as well. So, you know, she had gotten me fertility supplements and
good on you, Jacey.
You know, yeah, stopped drinking alcohol for a while.
It takes two to tango.
And I just wanted to make sure that my end was as healthy as possible, because she was doing all this work too. And it takes two. It's not just, you know, it's not just the egg, and it's not just the female's body. It needs a healthy sperm. And so
we learned that.
And we learned that.
You could, your lab results, like I got a call saying that, you know, some of my lab results weren't exact, but it was okay. And there's a difference between like being like okay and not like a warning sign, and being optimal.
Absolutely.
Right. We tried to make sure everything was optimal.
Yeah. And
we learned that through you. So.
Well, it's really important that you actually said that, because we always focus on the woman, but the reality is that the baby is 50-50. So it's 50% is the egg, but 50% is the sperm. And sometimes we focus so much on the woman, making sure that she's eating all the healthy food, taking all the supplements. And then you look at the man and he's like binge drinking on the weekend. He's not having enough food. He's just eating junk food. And that's not healthy for the couple and the baby. And so Jacey did all the work, A+ student, and then Eric, you follow through, because obviously, as I said from the very beginning, you guys are a team, and you're going to be the best parents, because you have decided to go through this whole process together, one step at a time, every single day. You have never given up. And I mean, we're not going to discuss all the challenges that you went through, but you went through a lot. We haven't touched upon a few things that happened at the beginning of the year that really tested you guys. And you're still here, super resilient, 18 weeks pregnant, sharing this with all the people out there that are going to need to hear this message, that are going to need to hear these words of reassurance, because there is lots of fear when it comes to infertility, getting the period back, and so on and so forth, and getting pregnant naturally. So if there is just one thing that you guys could say to someone that is watching this video, so just imagine yourself being you last year, when you were watching all these YouTube videos and you were watching all these, you know, live stories of women that went through the recovery process, what would you say to that woman or to that couple that is out there on the fence of actually taking actions? What would you tell them?
You go first.
I would say reach out to, well, specifically you, obviously, but reach out to get the support and guidance, because you have the information, you'll get it from different places, but having it in one place with someone who A, has been through it, and B, who, you know, everything's academically, you're intelligent, but you also have the emotional capacity that really makes someone feel supported. So you're a coach, but there is that emotional factor. So I would say that it's invaluable. Don't wait. It is worth it. And don't be afraid to include your partner, because that it's going to bring you both closer. But it'll make it easier for you, because you're going to go through things and you're going to want to talk to your journal, which is great. But sometimes you want to write in your journal and say it to them too, because
yes,
you know, it's you're both going through it together. Just like when you ultimately get pregnant, which I wish that for everyone who does want to get pregnant, you're carrying the baby, but you're going through it together. So they can and should be part of it. and you proved that you can be part of it, because I could not have done this without you.
Love that. And what about you, Eric?
Yeah, just piggybacking, if any guys are out there, you know, watching this with their partner, or, you know, you're watching other videos, just know that it is possible. Like, no matter what your partner is going through at the moment, no matter if you think she can change, she can't change, or you know, if you want it bad enough, it's going to happen. And you just got to be as supportive as possible, because at the end of the day, you are a team, and you like Jacey said, you're going through this together. It's happening to her body, but it's also part of the relationship now and part of reality. And really just, you know, be the best support you could possibly be, and you know, do things that will help yourself be healthier, you know, because at the end of the day, if you are trying to conceive, it does take two. So other than that, just stay positive, and you know, be as supportive as possible.
It takes two to tango. Beautiful words of wisdom. Guys, thank you so much for being here. It has been such a pleasure spending the last half an hour with you. I'm sure that so many people are gonna get lots of words of reassurance from watching you guys. And I simply say goodbye, and I hope to see you again soon. Thank you once again for being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.